Jake Morrison sat in the back row of the Galactic Council chamber, watching the alien delegates argue about trade routes and mining rights. His dark blue suit looked plain next to the fancy robes and armor worn by the other species. The humans, always dressed simple. They always sat in the cheap seats. They always spoke last. If they spoke at all, that was exactly how Earth wanted it. The chamber was huge, built to hold representatives from 47 different worlds. Crystal beings from Vortex Prime sparkled under the bright lights. Bug-like. Creatures from the Threx colonies clicked their mandibles as they talked. The fish people from Aqua 7 used water-filled helmets to breathe while they debated. At the center of it all sat the Zephyrians, proud and tall with their purple skin and 4 glowing eyes. Today they were all laughing at humanity again. "The humans want to expand their trade zone," said Council Leader Zethka, his voice dripping with mockery. "They ask for 3 more systems. 3 whole systems for a species that can barely defend the 5 they already have." The other delegates chuckled. Some made rude noises that passed for laughter in their cultures. Jake kept his face blank, but inside he was taking notes. Every insult, every dismissive gesture, every time they treated Earth like a joke. Admiral Lisa Brooks sat next to him, her military uniform neat and proper. She looked like any other human officer, nothing special, nothing threatening. The alien saw her rank and assumed she commanded maybe a dozen ships. Maybe 20 if Earth was lucky. They had no idea she controlled the largest fleet in galactic history. "Humans are so eager to please," continued Zethka. "Always asking for permission. Always following our rules. They remind me of pets begging for scraps from their master's table." More laughter. Jake noticed how the Threx delegate was recording everything for his government. Good. Let them all hear this. Let them remember these words when the time came. A tall, snake-like being from the Serpent Worlds raised one of his 4 arms. "What weapons do humans even have? I heard their ships still use chemical rockets. My children play with more advanced toys, projectile weapons," added a crystal being, her voice chiming like broken glass. "They shoot metal pellets at each other. How primitive can you get?" Jake stood up slowly. The chamber quieted a little, the way adults pause when a child wants to speak. He walked to the speaker's platform, his shoes making soft sounds on the polished floor. "The United Earth Government thanks the Council for considering our request," he said in a calm voice. "We understand that expansion requires careful planning." "Planning?" Zethka leaned forward in his throne-like chair. "Human, your species controls 5 small systems on the edge of nowhere. Your military consists of patrol boats and cargo haulers. What exactly are you planning to do with 3 more systems? Crash into the asteroids faster?" The chamber erupted in laughter again. Jake waited for it to die down, his hands folded behind his back. Admiral Brooks watched him carefully. She knew that pose. Jake only stood like that when he was about to do something dangerous. "We appreciate the Council's wisdom," Jake continued. "Earth has always valued peace over conflict. We prefer building to fighting. We choose cooperation over conquest." "Because you have no choice," said the Threx delegate, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Weak species always talk about peace. It's easier than admitting you cannot fight." Jake nodded as if agreeing. "You're absolutely right. Humans have always avoided showing our full strength. We believe violence should be the last option, not the first." "Full strength?" The snake being laughed so hard his scales rattled. "Human, we've seen your ships. We know your technology. A single hegemony battlecruiser could destroy your entire fleet without taking damage." The hegemony. Jake felt Admiral Brooks tense beside him at the mention of that name. 4 aggressive species working together, building war fleets, making threats. They had been quiet lately, but intelligence reports suggested they were planning something big. "Perhaps," Jake said mildly. We've never really tested our capabilities against serious opposition. Because you run away before anyone can test them, added a Vortani crystal being. Your ships flee at the first sign of trouble. Very smart, actually. Why fight when you know you'll lose? Jake smiled then, and something about that smile made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a predator makes when prey walks too close to its den. The Earth delegation would like to return to our original request, he said. 3 systems. Standard trade agreements. Mutual defense pacts with neighboring worlds. Defense pacts? Zethka's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. What could Earth possibly defend? You humans are barely able to protect yourselves. Admiral Brooks stood up and joined Jake at the platform. Her movement was precise, military, controlled. She looked like a career officer who had seen combat, which was exactly what she was. The aliens just didn't know what kind of combat. The Admiral will speak for Earth's military position, Jake announced. Brooks stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed instantly. Earth's defense capabilities are adequate for our current needs. Adequate? The Threx delegate clicked louder. Human, your biggest ship is smaller than our transport vessels. Your weapons couldn't scratch modern armor. Your sensors are decades behind current technology. Our technology serves its purpose, Brooks replied calmly. What purpose? Making the rest of us feel sorry for you. Brooks looked directly at the Threx delegate. Her eyes were cold, calculating, measuring. For just a moment, the bug-like alien stopped clicking. Something in her stare reminded him of the apex predators on his home world. Our technology serves the purpose of maintaining galactic peace, she said quietly. Earth has always believed in restraint. Jake stepped forward again. We withdraw our expansion request for now. The Council has given us much to think about. Very wise, said Zethka, already turning his attention to other matters. Perhaps when humanity grows stronger, you can try again. As Jake and Admiral Brooks walked toward the exit, conversations resumed around them. The aliens went back to their important business, dismissing the humans as easily as they had arrived. At the chamber doors, Jake paused and looked back. 47 species, millions of worlds, countless trillions of beings. All of them convinced that Earth was weak, backward, harmless. Admiral Brooks leaned close to him. How much longer do we keep this up? Jake watched the delegates arguing about mining rights and shipping lanes, completely unaware that the 2 humans leaving their chamber commanded enough firepower to crack planets. Until they force us to stop, he whispered back. They walked out together, leaving the aliens to their debates about who was strongest, who was smartest, who deserved to rule. None of them noticed the small recording device Jake left behind, hidden in the decorative plants near the entrance. Earth was always listening. Earth was always watching. Earth was always learning, and Earth was getting very tired of being laughed at. The emergency alarm screamed through Kepler Station at 3 in the morning. Jake Morrison rolled out of his narrow diplomatic bed and grabbed his clothes, knowing that nothing good ever happened when the Council called meetings at this hour. Down the hall, he could hear Admiral Brooks moving just as quickly. The Council chamber buzzed with panic. Delegates who usually spent hours on their appearance had rushed in wearing whatever they could find. The crystal beings from Vortex Prime flickered with nervous energy. The Threx clicked their mandibles in rapid, frightened patterns. Even the proud Zephyrians looked shaken. Council leader Zethka stood at the center platform, his 4 eyes dim with exhaustion and fear. Behind him, massive screens showed star maps with red zones spreading across multiple sectors like a disease. The hegemony has issued their final ultimatum, Zethka announced, his voice cracking. Complete surrender of all independent worlds within 30 standard days, or they will begin orbital bombardment of civilian targets. A wave of terrified voices filled the chamber. Jake and Admiral Brooks took their usual seats in the back, listening carefully. The hegemony had been building their war machine for years, but most of the council had ignored the warnings. Now, 4 aggressive species had united their fleets and were ready to conquer everything in their path. "How many ships do they have?" asked the Vortani representative, her crystal form trembling. "Our intelligence estimates 3,000 combat vessels," replied General Korax, the council's military advisor. "Dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, and carrier groups. The largest invasion force in galactic history." The Threx delegate made a sound like breaking wood. "Our combined fleets number maybe 800 ships, and half of those are older models. The Serpent Worlds have already begun evacuating their colonies," reported another delegate. "Their military command says resistance is impossible." Jake watched the panic spread through the chamber. These were the same beings who had laughed at Earth's weakness just days ago. Now they were ready to run from the first real threat they had faced in decades. Zefka raised his arms for silence. "The hegemony demands our complete submission. Dissolution of the Galactic Council. All military forces under their command. All trade controlled by their merchants. All worlds governed by their laws. What choice do we have?" The crystal being's voice sounded like shattering glass. "We cannot match their numbers. Our technology is inferior. Our ships are scattered across dozens of systems." Admiral Brooks leaned over to Jake. "Should we tell them about the quantum tunnel network?" Jake shook his head slightly. Earth's scientists had cracked faster-than-light communication and travel years ago, but the aliens still thought humans were limited to conventional spaceflight. Let them keep thinking that. On the screens, new reports showed hegemony fleets moving toward strategic targets. Their ships were massive, built for intimidation, as much as combat. Each dreadnought stretched over 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level cities. "We need evacuation plans for the core worlds," said the Aquarian delegate through his water-filled helmet. "Start with the industrial centers and work outward." "Evacuation to where?" snapped the Threx representative. "The hegemony will follow. US anywhere we run. This is conquest, not raid. They want everything." Jake stood up slowly. The chamber fell quiet as heads turned toward the human section. Most delegates had forgotten Earth was even represented at emergency sessions. "The United Earth Government requests permission to address the Council," he said in the same calm voice he always used. Itadzika blinked his 4 eyes in sequence. "Human. Morrison, while we appreciate any input, perhaps this crisis is beyond your world's limited experience." Several delegates made polite noises of agreement. The crystal beings chimed softly. The Threx clicked in what passed for sympathy among their kind. Jake walked to the speaker's platform, his shoes clicking on the polished floor. Behind him, Admiral Brooks remained seated, but her hand moved to the secure communicator on her belt. "Earth has been monitoring the hegemony buildup for some time," Jake began. "We're aware of the threat they represent." "Monitoring with what?" asked General Korax. "Your sensor networks barely extend past your own system." Jake smiled that cold smile again. "We have our methods." The truth was that Earth had been watching the hegemony for 3 years, through quantum surveillance drones no bigger than insects. Human intelligence knew exactly where every enemy ship was located, who commanded them, and what their battle plans contained. "What does Earth propose?" Zefka asked, though his tone suggested he expected nothing useful. "We request a brief recess to consult with our government," Jake replied. The Threx delegate clicked rapidly. "Human, what could your primitive leaders possibly contribute to this situation?" "We face the largest military force in galactic history. Earth understands the gravity of the situation," Admiral Brooks said, standing up for the first time. Her voice carried a strange confidence that made several delegates look at her more carefully. "Your entire fleet couldn't delay the hegemony for an hour," said the Serpent World representative. "No offense intended, but your ships are museum pieces." Brooks looked directly at him. "Our ships serve their intended purpose." "Which is what? Running away faster?" Jake stepped forward before Brooks could answer. Something in her posture suggested she was about to say things that would end their decades of careful deception. 24 hours, he said to the council. "Give Earth 24 hours to present our response to this crisis." Zefka's 4 eyes focused on Jake with something approaching pity. "Human Morrison, we respect your courage. But please understand that Earth's contribution to this war would be symbolic at best. Perhaps it would be wiser for your world to declare neutrality and avoid unnecessary destruction." The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. The aliens were trying to be kind, protecting the weak humans from getting hurt in a real war. Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. After 3 decades of playing the harmless newcomer, these beings still saw Earth as a charity case. They would rather face extinction than admit humans might be capable of helping them. "We appreciate the Council's concern for our safety," he said quietly. "Earth will consider all options carefully." As Jake and Admiral Brooks walked toward the exit, the delegates returned to their panic planning. Evacuation routes, surrender terms, ways to negotiate with an enemy that had already announced they would accept nothing less than total conquest. At the chamber doors, Admiral Brooks activated her secure communicator. "Priority Alpha message to Earth Command. The mask is coming." "Off." Jake paused at the threshold and looked back one more time. 47 species, countless worlds, trillions of beings convinced they were about to be conquered by an unstoppable enemy. None of them noticed that the 2 humans leaving their chamber showed no signs of fear. The hegemony had made their move. Now it was Earth's turn. In exactly 24 hours, the galaxy would discover what humans were really capable of when someone threatened the things they had sworn to protect. The beings who had spent years laughing at Earth's weakness were about to learn why that weakness had always been an act, and they were going to learn it the hard way. The war room beneath Denver was a place that did not exist on any official map. 3 miles underground, protected by quantum shields and energy barriers that could stop nuclear weapons. It housed the real government of Earth, President Carroll. Williams sat at the head of a table made from a single piece of black stone, watching holographic displays that showed the true scope of human civilization. Jake Morrison and Admiral Brooks had arrived 30 minutes ago through a quantum tunnel that transported them instantly from Kepler Station. Now they sat with the most powerful people in human space, preparing to make a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "The hegemony has 3,000 ships," reported General Pete Jackson, his weathered face grim in the blue light of the displays. "Large ships, heavily armed, but using technology that's 20 years behind our current capabilities." President Williams nodded slowly. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone in the room treated her with the respect reserved for someone who controlled the most advanced military force in known space. "Show me our real numbers," she said quietly. The holographic display changed, revealing the truth that no alien species suspected. Earth did not control 5 small systems on the edge of nowhere. Human colonies stretched across 200 star systems, hidden by quantum cloaking technology and false sensor readings. The primitive ships the aliens had seen were decoys, designed to look weak and outdated. "Current fleet strength stands at 8,200 combat vessels," Admiral Brooks reported. "That includes 1,200 dreadnoughts, 3,000 battlecruisers, and 48 carrier groups, all equipped with quantum tunnel drives, plasma cannons, and adaptive shield systems." Director Helen Clark, head of strategic intelligence, pulled up tactical analyses. "The hegemony ships are impressive by galactic standards, but they're still using fusion drives and projectile weapons. Our slowest ships can outrun their fastest interceptors." Jake studied the enemy fleet positions. They're confident because no one has ever challenged them seriously. The other species always run or surrender before fighting. That's because the other species fight fair, said General Jackson. They announce their fleets, declare their intentions, follow rules of engagement. The hegemony does the same thing, just with bigger guns. President Williams leaned back in her chair. And humans? Humans cheat, replied Dr. Kevin Walsh, Earth's chief weapons designer. His presentation showed technologies that would seem like magic to most galactic civilizations. We don't fight fair. We fight to win. The displays showed weapon systems that had been theoretical concepts when Earth first joined the Galactic Council, quantum missiles that could phase through shields, plasma beams that burned hotter than stellar cores, AI systems that could think faster than any organic brain. The quantum tunnel network gives us perfect intelligence on enemy movements, Director Clark continued. We've been watching the hegemony for 3 years. We know their fleet positions, their command structure, their battle plans, and their supply lines. Admiral Brooks activated another display. More importantly, we know their psychology. They're bullies. They rely on fear and overwhelming numbers. When someone hits back harder than they expect, they break. Jake remembered the panic in the council chamber. The other species want us to run away. They think we're doing them a favor by declaring neutrality. Let them think that, said President Williams. The question is whether we're ready to drop the mask. Once we reveal our true capabilities, there's no going back to the old arrangement. General Jackson pulled up deployment plans. Our forces are already in position. Quantum tunnels allow us to strike anywhere in the galaxy within hours. The hegemony thinks they're hunting sheep, but they're about to find out they've cornered a pack of wolves. Dr. Walsh highlighted the technological advantages. Their weapons can't penetrate our adaptive shields. Their sensors can't track our stealth systems. Their computers can't match our eye-eye coordination. It won't be a battle. It will be a demonstration. Casualties? Asked President Williams. Minimal on our side, Admiral Brooks replied. The hegemony will lose most of their fleet, but we can target engines and weapon systems instead of crew quarters. They'll survive to spread the word about what happened. Director Clark accessed classified files. The real question is what happens after? Once the galaxy knows our true strength, how do we prevent another arms race? How do we keep from becoming the new threat everyone has to unite against? Jake had been thinking about that problem for years. We give them a choice. Join a real alliance based on cooperation, or face the consequences of staying with the old system of constant warfare. And if they choose to fight us instead? President Williams looked around the table at her advisors. These were people who had spent decades preparing for this moment, knowing it would eventually come. Then we remind them why Earth was holding back in the first place, she said simply. The room fell silent except for the hum of quantum processors calculating battle scenarios. Everyone understood what was about to happen. 30 years of careful deception were about to end. The galaxy would discover that the weak, backward species they had been laughing at was actually the most dangerous force in known space. Admiral Brooks stood up. Fleet Command is requesting final authorization for Operation Revelation. What's our cover story? Asked Jake. Ancient defense protocols, replied Director Clark. Earth will claim we've been hiding our military capabilities as a survival strategy. The aliens will assume we've been scared and paranoid, not patient and calculating. General Jackson activated secure communications to military bases hidden throughout human space. All units report ready. Quantum tunnel generators are charged and standing by. Strike forces are in position. President Williams stood up slowly. Everyone in the room rose with her, understanding that this moment would be remembered as the turning point in galactic history. The Galactic Council has 47 member species, she said quietly. Trillions of beings living on thousands of worlds. They've been protected by Earth's restraint for 3 decades, and they never knew it. She looked directly at Admiral Brooks. The hegemony wants to conquer the galaxy. Show them what happens when someone threatens Earth's neighbors. Brooks saluted with military precision. Yes, Madam President. Authorization received and acknowledged. As the meeting broke up, Jake watched the displays showing hegemony fleets moving toward their targets. They looked powerful and unstoppable, exactly like every bully he had ever encountered. In 18 hours, he would return to the Galactic Council chamber and deliver Earth's response to the crisis. The aliens expected surrender terms or evacuation plans. Instead, they would get a demonstration of what human warfare actually looked like. When the gloves came off, the hegemony had demanded complete surrender from the galaxy. They were about to discover that Earth had a counteroffer, and Earth's terms were not negotiable. Supreme Commander Vrex Thule stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, watching the industrial world of Kepler-7 grow larger on his screens. The planet held factories that supplied half the galaxy with manufactured goods. Taking it would cripple the Galactic Council's ability to build ships or weapons. Status report, he commanded, his reptilian voice echoing through the bridge. 300 ships in attack formation, reported his tactical officer. Enemy defenses are minimal. 20 Vortani patrol craft and a few orbital defense platforms. Vrex Thule smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Vortani were crystal beings who preferred art to warfare. Their ships were beautiful but fragile. This would be over in minutes. Open a channel to the planet, he ordered. The screen flickered, showing a terrified Vortani commander whose crystal form pulsed with nervous energy. This is Governor Zextal of Kepler-7. Please state your intentions. Surrender now and your people will be spared, Vrex Thule announced. Resist and we will crack your planet like an egg. The Vortani governor's light dimmed. We need time to consider. You have 10 minutes. Vrex Thule cut the transmission and turned to his officers. The hegemony had planned this campaign for years. Hit the industrial worlds first, destroy their ability to fight back, then move on the political centers. Simple and effective. Sir, called his sensor officer, detecting new contacts. 47 ships approaching from the outer system. Vrex Thule checked his tactical display. The new ships were small, sleek, moving in perfect formation. Their design was unfamiliar but not threatening. Identification? Unknown class. Running sensor sweeps now. The unknown ships moved closer, their hulls dark and smooth. They seemed to flow through space like living things, their movement patterns unlike anything in the hegemony database. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. Put it through. The screen flickered again, showing a human woman in a crisp military uniform. She had short brown hair and cold blue eyes that seemed to look right through him. This is Admiral Amy Foster of the Earth Defense Force, she said calmly. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. Vrex Thule stared at the screen for a moment, then began laughing. His bridge crew joined in, their various species making different sounds of amusement. Human, he said when he could speak again, you are either very brave or very stupid. I count 47 ships against my 300. Even for your primitive species, that seems like poor planning. Admiral Foster's expression did not change. You count 47 ships because that is what your sensors can detect. Computer, decloak the fleet. Space around Kepler-7 suddenly filled with ships. Thousands of them materialized from nowhere, their hulls gleaming with unknown technologies. The hegemony fleet found themselves surrounded by a force that outnumbered them 20 to 1. Vrex Thule's laughter died in his throat. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected them. Your sensors detect what we allow them to detect, Foster replied. This is your final warning. Withdraw now or face the consequences. The hegemony commander looked at his tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The human ships were everywhere, positioned with perfect precision. Their formation suggested planning and coordination beyond anything he had encountered. "What kind of ships are those?" his tactical officer whispered. "Unknown design," the sensor officer reported. "Energy readings are off the scale. I'm detecting weapon systems I don't recognize." Vrexthul straightened his shoulders. The hegemony did not retreat from primitive species, no matter how many ships they brought. "All vessels, open fire," he commanded. "Target the human fleet." The hegemony ships unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, energy beams, and projectile weapons filled space with deadly light. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. None of it reached the human ships. "Sir, their shields are absorbing everything," reported the weapons officer. "No damage detected." Admiral Foster's voice came over the communication channel again. "Your turn is over. Now it's ours." The human ships moved like dancers, flowing through space with impossible grace. Their weapons fired in perfect coordination, beams of energy that burned brighter than stars. Each shot was precisely aimed, targeting engines and weapon systems rather than crew compartments. Hegemony ships began going dark all around the fleet. Not destroyed, but disabled. Their weapons offline, their engines dead, their crews trapped in metal coffins drifting through space. "Return fire!" Vrexthul screamed. "All ships return fire." "Sir, weapons are offline," his tactical officer reported. "Engines are failing. We're losing power throughout the ship." On the main screen, Admiral Foster watched the destruction of the hegemony fleet with the same calm expression she had worn from the beginning. "This is what happens when you threaten worlds under Earth's protection," she said. "Your fleet is disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are alive but helpless. Consider this a lesson in the difference between conquest and defense." Vrexthul felt his flagship shudder as its systems failed one by one. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to restore power, but their efforts were useless. Whatever weapons the humans were using, they were beyond hegemony understanding. "How?" he gasped. "How do you have ships like this? Our intelligence said humans were primitive." "Your intelligence was wrong," Foster replied. "Earth has been watching the galaxy for 30 years. We know everything about your species, your technology, your weaknesses. You know nothing about us." The tactical display showed the complete destruction of the hegemony attack force. 300 ships, the pride of 4 aggressive species, reduced to floating debris in less than an hour. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender signals from the remaining vessels." Admiral Foster opened a channel to all hegemony ships. "This is Admiral Foster. Your attack on Kepler-7 has failed. Your fleet is defeated. You have one choice: surrender unconditionally and await prisoner exchange, or continue fighting and face complete annihilation." Vrexthul looked around his bridge at his defeated crew. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy like this. "Admiral Foster," he said finally, "the Hegemony Supreme Command does not surrender." "Then the Hegemony Supreme Command is about to learn what total war means," Foster replied. "We know the location of every hegemony base, every supply depot, every command center. We can strike all of them simultaneously. Your choice is simple: surrender now or watch your entire civilization burn." The silence on the bridge stretched for long minutes. Outside, the human ships waited in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, "our other fleets are reporting the same thing. Human ships appearing from nowhere, overwhelming firepower, complete defeat." Vrexthul closed his eyes. The hegemony had built their empire on fear and superior numbers. Now they faced an enemy that was not afraid and outnumbered them completely. "Signal fleet surrender," he said quietly. "Within minutes, Every hegemony ship in the system had powered down their weapons and surrendered. The conquest that was supposed to last days had ended in hours. Admiral Foster's final transmission went out on all frequencies, reaching every world in the galaxy. This is the Earth Defense Force. The hegemony threat has been neutralized. All worlds are safe. Earth stands ready to defend galactic peace. The galaxy was about to learn that the weak, primitive humans had been the strongest force in space all along. The Galactic Council Chamber had never been so quiet. 3 days had passed since the Battle of Kepler-7, and news reports were still flooding in from across the galaxy. The mighty hegemony fleet, 3,000 ships strong, had been destroyed by an enemy most species had never taken seriously. Jake Morrison walked to the speaker's platform for the last time as Earth's humble ambassador. Tomorrow, President Carol Williams would arrive to address the council personally. The age of human deception was over. Council leader Zefka sat slumped in his throne-like chair, his 4 eyes dim with shock. The other delegates whispered among themselves in dozens of languages, but their conversations all centered on the same impossible truth. Humanity had been lying to them for 30 years. The United Earth government has prepared a statement regarding recent events, Jake announced, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. Every head turned toward him. The crystal beings from Vortex Prime flickered with nervous energy. The Threx clicked their mandibles in worried patterns. Even the proud Serpent World representatives coiled nervously in their seats. 3 days ago, hegemony forces attacked the peaceful world of Kepler-7, Jake continued. Earth Defense Forces responded to protect our galactic neighbors from unprovoked aggression. The Vartani delegate spoke first, her voice chiming like broken glass. Ambassador Morrison, our intelligence reports suggest that Earth deployed over 8,000 combat vessels. How is this possible when your official fleet registry lists only 47 ships? Jake smiled that cold smile one final time. Earth has always maintained adequate defensive capabilities for our security needs. Adequate? The Threx representative clicked rapidly. Human, you destroyed the largest invasion force in galactic history in less than 4 hours. Your ships used weapons we have never seen. Your technology appears to be decades ahead of anything in Council records. Earth's technology has developed along different paths than our galactic neighbors, Jake replied calmly. Zeth-Ka leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. You lied to us. For 30 years you sat in those back seats, pretending to be weak, while you built the most powerful military force in known space. Earth never lied about our capabilities, Jake said carefully. We simply chose not to reveal our full strength unless circumstances required it. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Delegates who had spent decades looking down on humanity now realized they had been deceived by the very species they considered primitive. You made fools of us, shouted the Serpent World representative. You let us believe you were helpless while you could have conquered the entire galaxy. Earth has no interest in conquest, Jake replied. We prefer cooperation to domination. Admiral Brooks stood up beside the platform, her uniform marking her as the commander who had defeated the hegemony. Several delegates flinched at the sight of her, remembering the battle reports that described impossible human ships appearing from empty space. The Earth Defense Force exists to protect, not to conquer, she said firmly. We revealed our capabilities only when peaceful worlds faced extinction. Protection? The crystal being's voice shattered with emotion. You could have ended every war in the galaxy. You could have stopped countless conflicts. How many beings died while you pretended to be weak? Jake felt the weight of that accusation. It was the question he had been asking himself for years. Earth chose restraint because we hoped the galaxy would learn to resolve conflicts peacefully, he said quietly. We wanted partners, not subjects. The Aquarian delegate spoke through his water-filled helmet. What happens now? Do you expect us to simply accept this deception? Do you plan to rule us as the hegemony intended? President Williams chose that moment to enter the chamber. The tall, gray-haired woman walked down the center aisle with quiet confidence, flanked by two human guards who looked like ordinary soldiers, but carried weapons that could level buildings. The chamber fell silent as she took the speaker's platform. Every delegate knew they were looking at the most powerful person in the galaxy, the leader of a civilization that could destroy or protect them at will. The United Earth government proposes a new galactic charter, she announced, her voice carrying absolute authority. One based on genuine cooperation rather than hidden competition. She activated a holographic display that showed the structure of Earth's proposed galactic federation. The terms were surprisingly generous, considering humanity's overwhelming military advantage. Earth will provide protection and advanced technology to all member worlds, Williams continued. In return, we ask for an end to the old system of constant warfare and territorial expansion. What if we refuse? Asked Zethka, though his voice lacked any real defiance. President Williams looked directly at him. Then you return to the system that brought you the hegemony crisis. Earth will withdraw to our own territory and let the galaxy solve its own problems. The threat was clear without being spoken. Earth had saved them from the hegemony, but there would be other threats. Pirates, raiders, aggressive species seeking expansion. Without human protection, the weaker civilizations would fall one by one. The Federation Charter includes mutual defense agreements, Admiral Brooks added. Any attack on a member world will be considered an attack on Earth itself. Dr. Kevin Walsh stepped forward, carrying data tablets that held technological marvels. Earth is prepared to share advances in medicine, energy production, and space travel. Diseases that have plagued your worlds for centuries can be cured. Faster-than-light travel will be available to all member species. The delegates looked at each other with growing understanding. Earth was offering them protection from external threats and solutions to internal problems. The price was acknowledgement of human leadership and an end to the aggressive expansion that had dominated galactic politics for centuries. Why should we trust you? Asked the Threx delegate. You deceived us for 30 years. How do we know this is not another deception? President Williams smiled, but it was warmer than Jake's cold expressions. Because we are offering you a choice. Join the Federation as equal partners, or remain independent and face the galaxy's dangers alone. We are not demanding surrender. We are requesting cooperation. The vote took 3 hours of debate, but the outcome was inevitable. Species after species accepted the Federation Charter, understanding that the alternative was facing the next crisis without the protection that had just saved them from the hegemony. When the final tally was announced, 46 of the 47 Council species had voted to join Earth's Galactic Federation. Only the proud Zephyrians chose independence, unwilling to acknowledge human authority. As the session ended, Jake found himself standing beside Admiral Brooks, watching the delegates file out in subdued groups. The beings who had once laughed at Earth's weakness now competed desperately for human approval and protection. Think they have learned their lesson? Brooks asked quietly. Jake watched Zethka shuffle past, his 4 eyes avoiding human faces. The former council leader looked older, diminished by the knowledge that his proud civilization owed its survival to the species he had mocked. They have learned that Earth was holding back, Jake replied. Whether they remember that lesson when the next crisis comes depends on how well we teach them the value of peace. Admiral Brooks nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility that came with overwhelming power. The galaxy was safe for now, but maintaining that safety would require constant vigilance and careful judgment. The age of human deception was over. The age of human leadership had begun. The galaxy had demanded to see what humanity was truly capable of. Now they knew. The question was whether they would be wise enough to never force Earth to prove it again.